Hey y'all, I am finally back from grocery shopping and I am pooped. I had to go to 3 different stores to get everything that we needed. And this is why I don't like grocery shopping. But I just wanted to take some time to talk about my employment or unemployment situation and just talk about my finances. So I'm going to go back to the job that allowed me to save enough money to still be living off my savings after 2 years. Now, in 2018, I started working as a medical courier, which was a totally different field from where I normally work. I have a associate's degree in business and a bachelor's degree in business management, and so I normally work in the accounting field, like auditing, administration, bookkeeping, like anything dealing with numbers and office type work. That's the type of work that I normally do. But those jobs, at least for me, they were not paying that much money, like maybe 45,000 a year, sometimes 30,000 a year, depending on the job and the company. And I needed more money than that. I was also unemployed for a decade. And I know y'all are like, a decade? Yes, I was unemployed for a decade when my kids were little, when I was having babies. So I was being a stay-at-home mom while looking for a job. And I was never able to find anything that made it worth going to work, because the check that I would have been making would have been taken up by daycare. My husband wasn't able to pay the daycare because he was consumed by all the other bills that we had. His money would be gone after all the other bills. So if I were going to go to work, I was going to have to be the one to pay the daycare out of whatever I was making. And once I would have done that, I would not have had anything left. So like, what would have been the point? I would have been working just for daycare. So I was unemployed for a decade, but I was also being a stay-at-home mom. I was looking for a job the whole time, not finding anything worthwhile, not finding anything that I can do while being a mother, not having a village. My mother passed away when I was 19. My dad, he's deceased now, but he was never a good dad. So my kids didn't even know him. My kids met him on his deathbed, and he passed away in 2016. And I lived all the way in Shreveport. I have 2 sisters and a brother, but they didn't live in Shreveport, so I didn't have any village. So it was just me and him, and that's it. So when you have kids and it's just you and you don't have anybody else to help you with your kids, you're pretty much stuck. So I was like trapped in being unemployed. There was nothing that I could do. So we ended up moving cities so that I could find a job, for other reasons as well, but a big part was I couldn't find a job when I was living in Shreveport. So I'm originally from New Orleans, but I did not want to come back to New Orleans, so we moved to Slidell when the twins were like 4. And they got in pre-K, and that's when I started working. So in 2018, I got a job as a medical courier because I wanted to try something different, something that would pay me more money. Yes, it was going to be physical labor. I've never done physical labor jobs before, because not only was I picking up specimen from the clinics, but I was delivering medical supplies from the hospital to the clinic. So I was basically like UPS, just like, just me. Sometimes my truck would be filled with like 40, 50 packages. My small escape, I would find a way to make it fit. I had to put my back seats down, and I got it done. These clinics would be delivering, they would be ordering chairs, desks, blood pressure machines, packs and packs and packs of that heavy paper, and it was a lot. It was a lot on my body, but the money was really, really good. So I did that from 2018 to 2023. I had a route out in Mississippi, so I would go in the morning to the hospital out there in Hancock County and pick up all the supplies that the different clinics that were on my route had ordered for that day. I would pick up instruments from sterile processing, clean instruments to take to the clinics. I would go to the pharmacy and pick up meds, and then I would deliver it to the clinics on my route. in the evening, I would go back to those clinics and pick up all the specimen that they had drawn that day, the urine, the blood, and I would take it back to the hospital, to the hospital's lab so they could process it. So that's what I did for 5 years, and that money was so good. I was able to save a lot of money. I'm talking in the six figures. I was able to save a lot of money because, it was two incomes. And even though I was paying bills, I was making so much money that I had enough money to still save a lot. And that money, that job allowed me to save a ton of money. And I was able to put down a substantial down payment and closing costs on this house. My soon-to-be ex-husband, he might have contributed maybe like $11,000. He was the reason why I had to pay so much in closing costs, because his credit is never good. His credit is never good. Every time I fix his credit, he destroys it again. So when you are buying a house or a car or anything with another person, the banks, the creditors, they don't go with the person with the highest credit. They always go with the person with the lowest credit. They take their credit and that is how they decide what your interest rate is going to be. So back in 2022, when we were buying this house, the interest rates were not 2.53, 3.5% anymore. This is during the time when the interest rates had gone up to 6.5, 7.5%. Obviously, you have to have the highest credit to probably get that 6.5. So our interest rate was higher than I wanted it to be. So I had to pay extra money to buy down the interest rate to get it to like 6.5. So I spent like $70-something thousand on this house, and he put maybe like $11,000, so it's like $83,000. And once I did that, obviously my savings went down a lot, but because I was still working for that year from 2022 to 2023, I was able to build my savings account back up. And I also furnished this house. Like pretty much everything you see in here, I paid for it. So to the tune of about $20,000 over the course of maybe a year. It was like a year before my house was fully together. I mean, I had all my furniture and everything was in place, but I was like gradually adding, little extra pictures, extra plants, extra this, extra that over the course of that year. But I was still making enough money where I was still able to stack money. So I was able to build my savings account back up. Okay, so in 2023, Ashner, that's who we had the contract with, they made a lot of cuts. They were making a lot of cuts. I don't know if y'all remember, but it was during that time when Ashna was laying off. They were laying off doctors, nurses. A lot of people were losing their jobs, and their contractors, their pay was getting cut. Like the contract, whatever you were getting paid before, it was pretty much getting cut in half. So it got, they cut my contract so much that I was making less than $1,000 a week. I'm talking around $700 a week. And when you are a contractor, everything's on you. I was using my car, so the wear and tear on my car was significant. I can't tell you how many times I was broken down on the side of the road. I can't tell you how many times I had my tires blow out. Pretty much everything on my car has been changed. My fuel pump had gone out. My water pump had gone out. My windshield wipers need to be replaced. I used to be driving, and it would be storming, and my windshield wipers would just stop working. I remember I drove like 2 or 3 days before I could get my windshield wipers fixed, and all of a sudden those were rainy days. Like, just my luck. When I don't have windshield wipers, now it's going to rain every day. So my car was being put through the ringer. I think I had to replace my starter, batteries. It was so many things that I had to replace on that car. So I was calling a tow truck. For the 5 years that I did that, I was broken down more than I'd like to, more than I wanted to be. I mean, nobody ever wants to be broken down, but yes, it happens. And it's because when you are riding your car up and down hundreds of miles a day on your car, the car was not meant to be driven like that. It was not meant to be, you know, constantly being turned on, turned off, or sitting in the car idling, waiting until I can go back to the clinics. I used to do that a lot. Sitting in the car idling, just waiting until I can go back. You know, having your air condition running in the summertime. Like, it was a lot of wear and tear on my vehicle. I had to call a tow truck a lot of times, and even though I had insurance that covered a tow, your insurance normally covers a tow for a certain amount of miles. If you live in Slidell and you're all the way out there in Mississippi, then you are far beyond the miles that are being covered by your insurance. So the rest has to come out of your pocket. So I had to spend a lot of money getting my car repaired for, parts, labor. But I had the money to do it, so it was okay. But once they cut that money, and also you have to think about gas, okay? Gas is also on you. When you're a contractor, you have no sick days. So whenever I'm sick, which I was hardly ever sick, but whenever I was sick, or any of my kids were sick, then I'm just out with no pay. No PTO, no holiday pay, no health insurance, no nothing. So the money has to be there. Like, the money has to be good because you're not getting anything else. So once the money ceases to be good, what are you doing, you know? So gas, all of that was coming out of your pocket. And if you cut my pay down to like $700 a week and $200 of that is gas, I'm just making like $500. Like, what am I going to do when my car breaks down now? How am I going to get it fixed? So it just came to a point where it didn't make any sense. Also, Ashna was adding, what they would like to do is take a suite and just put a bunch of clinics in that suite. So like, I was already delivering to a location that had 4 different clinics in there. So that's 4 different workloads, 4 different sets of supplies, 4 different sets of specimen that you're picking up, 4 different sets of instruments, and they were constantly adding more clinics on. So by the time I left, that location had probably about 8 clinics in that same little strip. And instead of them paying me more, they only want to pay you based on the mileage. And so since you're already going there, like, what's the big deal? You're already coming here anyway. You're not driving any extra. Why should we pay you more? Well, you should pay me more because now all these extra clinics are going to be ordering their own supplies. My workload is going to quadruple. Why shouldn't my pay quadruple? So the thing about me is, when I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not going to let nobody take advantage of me. That's just how I am. I have a lot of pride. I have a lot of self-worth, and I'm just not going to do it. And even though I know it's going to be hard for me to find a job, because it's always been hard for me to find a job. It's always been a struggle for me. And I know that if I leave this, it's going to be difficult, but I still do it because it's just something in me that cannot allow myself to be mistreated or taken advantage of. So I was out. And from March 2023 to like November 2023, I was unemployed, and I still continue paying my same bills. My same bills that I was responsible for. Let me tell y'all the bills that I was responsible for. And this is with a husband, okay? I was paying the electric bill, the gas bill, the water bill, the trash bill, Arkin, because we have to have pest control. My kids and I, we hate pests, so we got to pay for pest control. I said Arkin, ADT, that's our alarm system. That's important. I was paying for like my Google, my Apple storage. My 3 kids' life insurance. I was paying for my son's homeschool curriculum when he started being homeschooled. Our HOA dues at the end of the year. I would pay our taxes if we owe taxes. If we went on any trips, that was me. If we went on, if we did anything extra, that was me. If the kids needed anything, clothes, I was always updating wardrobes, winter wardrobes, summer wardrobes for 3 kids, socks, and all the things that kids need and how they constantly grow out of things: undershirts, underwear, bras, and swimwear for the summer, and swim trunks, and pajamas, winter pajamas, summer pajamas, just like everything that they needed. That was all me. Um, the kids and I used different toiletries or different, products than my husband does. So he would go to the store and he would just buy his own soap, buy his own deodorant, and I would have to buy our soap, our deodorant, our, lotions, any creams that we use, hair supplies for, the hair. My daughters have locks like I have locks. My son's hair is pretty long. So all that was on me. What else? Pads, 2 daughters, and myself. So we went through a lot of pads. We're talking about facial cleansers, moisturizers, just anything that we needed, I bought it. My youngest daughter has very bad vision, so she wears contacts, and in one eye she wears a contact, and she also wears glasses. That's how bad the vision is in her left eye, and her right eye is also really nearsighted. So and my other daughter also wears glasses when she drives. She doesn't wear them all the time, but when she drives. So glasses, I would pay for contacts, I'm paying for eye drops, any extra things that my kids did, I pay for it. And I was continuing to pay for all of that stuff when I stopped working. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. My daughter just graduated from high school, so I think during that time in 2023, I don't know what grade she was in. Yeah, in 2023. Okay, so I started working. Let's fast forward a little bit. So I started working in November of 2024. And in November of 2024, I got a work from home job. It was a job in the accounting field. So I was back in the field that I was in before I started the medical courier. And I was back to the low pay. This job paid like $22 an hour. And, so it was barely enough for me to pay my portion of the bills, or the bills that I was responsible for. And I was not going to have much money left over to save. So I took the job because, again, I had already been unemployed from March to November. That's a long time. So I was happy just to have anything. And the positive of the job was that it was work from home. So finally, I was like, I'm going to get to homeschool my son. So he was nearing the end of, because it was November. So he was nearing the end of 5th grade. So when May came, I was still at the job. And then in August, I started homeschooling him. And, that was perfect for me because I always wanted to homeschool my son. My son has autism. And he's been in public school since he was in, kindergarten. So at that point, he was going to be going to middle school. Him and his twin sister were going to be going to the 6th grade. And I knew my daughter would be fine going to public school, but I did not want my son to be in public school because the thing about them being together is that I always knew that she was there with him. They were in the same class from kindergarten all the way to 4th grade. So she would watch him, she would watch over him for me, and that made me feel better. My son is moderately autistic, so he's like right in the middle. He's not severely autistic, but he's also not mildly autistic. He needs a lot of help with certain things, fine motor skills challenges. He would get extra occupational therapy. He gets speech therapy. He had an IEP. So when he got to 5th grade, this was the first time they were split up, and they cried and cried and cried, but eventually they got used to it. But anyway, he was going to middle school. So I'm like, I don't want my baby in middle school, like not a public middle school. And the reason why is because those middle school children, that's when kids start to get really mean, and that's when they start to bully, and it's just, something that I did not want my son to be a part of, because my autistic son is not violent. He doesn't have violent outbursts. He is gentle. Like, he's a gentle soul. He's very loving. He's very kind. Now he has meltdowns, but when he has meltdowns, it's crying, and he doesn't have them a lot. It normally is triggered when we're doing homeschool, if it's something that he doesn't know or he doesn't want to answer, or if I push a little bit to try to get him to answer, sometimes he'll just start crying, and that's mostly when I see his meltdowns. Other than that, he is the sweetest, kindest little boy that you will ever meet. Like, that's my baby. He is affectionate. Out of all my kids, he's the one that likes to give me hugs and kisses, and he's just so sweet. So, no, I'm not about to send my sweet child into a jungle. So I was happy to have that homeschool, that work from home job. So I was able to homeschool my child. But what was I saying? Okay, so when I started the job, or before I started the job, what they explained to me, because normally I don't like taking contract positions. The contract position that I had with the medical courier company, that was different because that was a long time contract. Like, that contract was never really going to end. They renegotiate and get different amounts that they want to pay you and stuff like that, but the contract was not one that would end, and that's why I was able to do that for 5 years. I don't like taking short-term contracts or temporary work because it's always so much work for me to find a job in the first place. And I'm not going to put forth all that effort for something that's going to be temporary, and then when you look, I'm going to be right back out of work. Like, that just seems like a waste of time for me. But they assured me that the contract was going to be for a year, but it would be extended. They said in the past, all their previous contracts had been extended. So your contract is going to be extended, or you would have the opportunity to get on directly with the government agency. Now, this contract company will supply workers for government agencies. So it just so happens that I was working for the USDA. So I'm like, okay, so I have two opportunities to continue working. The contract might be extended, and every year when it comes up for renewal, it'll keep getting extended. This is what they told me. Or I have a chance that the USDA will hire me on as a regular employee. So I'm like, okay, I can do this, I'm going to do this. So why is it that the contract ended early? The contract was not renewed after a year. The USDA did not hire us on, and the contract ended early. So in September of 2024, okay, so I started the job in November of 2023. Okay, I stopped the medical courier job in March of 2023, and I started this job, or the work from home job, in November of 2023. So from November of 2023 to September of 2024, that's how long I had the job, and then the contract was ended. So I was like, I was just blown away. We were all blown away. It was a group of maybe like 10 of us who started that job, and we were just like, what? I'm like, I must have the worst fucking luck in the world. Because you mean to tell me this contract has always been renewed every single year for every other worker before me and the people that I was hired with. But all of a sudden, when I get on the fucking team, now the contract is ending early. I'm like, man, when it comes to jobs, I have the worst fucking luck possible.